story of the bloody, unfamiliar, mysterious kind lady. In the heart of Isal Osun, a bustling town in Osun State, Nigeria, life moved at its own steady rhythm. The marketplace buzzed with traders, the air rich with the scent of roasted plantains, palm oil, and freshly ground pepper. Young boys ran barefoot through the dusty streets, their laughter blending with the calls of merchants selling their wares. But among the life and chatter, there was a presence that made the townspeople uneasy. She was a woman no one truly knew. Tall, with a striking yet unfamiliar face, she moved like a ghost among them. Some whispered that she had no past, no family, no roots in Isale Osun. Others claimed they had seen her hands stained with something dark, perhaps palm oil, perhaps something worse. She was known only as Abini, but even her name carried an air of mystery. She lived in an old crumbling house near the edge of the town, where the forest began. No one had ever been inside. No one dared. The only time she appeared in public was when she walked through the market selecting items with an eerie silence. She never bargained, never spoke beyond the necessary, yet the way her eyes scanned the crowd unsettled those around her. One evening, as the sun began to sink behind the trees, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple, a piercing scream shattered the quiet of the town. It echoed down a narrow alley behind the market. Within moments, the townspeople gathered at the mouth of the alley, their hearts racing in fear. There, standing still in the dim light, was Abini. Her appearance was calm, almost eerie. Her long wrapper was stained with red, and in her hand she held a small knife, its blade glinting ominously. At her feet, a man lay crumpled, clutching his bleeding arm, his face twisted in pain. The crowd froze. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the man's labored breathing. Abini's gaze met the onlookers, but she did not flinch. Slowly, almost deliberately, she turned and vanished into the shadows, leaving behind the silence of a town paralyzed by fear and confusion. From that moment, the whispers grew. Abini's actions were now etched in the minds of the people, her reputation darker than ever. But no one dared to ask why. No one dared to approach the mystery that was Abini. The night after the alley incident, Isale Osun was restless. The moon hung low, casting pale light over the town. But the usual sounds of nighttime, distant talking, the occasional bark of a dog, were absent. Fear had settled over the people like harmattan dust. The man Abini had attacked was named Bada, a palm wine tapper known for his loud mouth and heavy drinking. He survived the wound, but his pride did not let him swore that he had done nothing to provoke her, that he was simply passing through the alley when she struck him without warning. "She is a mad woman," Bada hissed, his arm wrapped in cloth, as he sat among his friends at a local palm wine shed. "She walks like a ghost, and now she thirsts for blood." His words spread quickly. Women in the marketplace exchanged nervous glances. Elders shook their heads, muttering about dark omens. Even the Bali, the town's leader, heard of the attack. He sent word for the local guards to keep an eye on Abini. Yet, despite the fear gripping the town, no one dared to confront her. Abini, as always, remained silent. The day after the attack, she moved through the market as if nothing had happened. The traders hesitated before selling to her, their hands unsteady as they handed over goods. Mothers pulled their children close when she passed, their eyes filled with caution. But Abini paid them no mind. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, she made her way back toward her home near the edge of the forest. The air was still, unnaturally quiet. Even the birds seemed to have abandoned the trees. Then came the sound of hurried footsteps behind her. She stopped. Slowly, she turned, her dark eyes scanning the empty road. The shadows stretched long, the path deserted. Yet she knew. Someone was watching her. Without a word, Abini continued walking, her steps calm and deliberate. But deep in her mind, a thought flickered like a dying flame. It had begun. The wind whispered through the trees as Abini reached the outskirts of Isale Osun, where her house sat in quiet isolation. The structure, old and worn, stood like a forgotten relic, its mud walls cracked from years of neglect. Few had ever walked this far. Fewer still had dared to knock on her door. She entered without hesitation, bolting the wooden door behind her. Inside, the single-room house was sparse. Only a sleeping mat, a clay pot of water, and a small fire pit. Abini sat down, her back against the cool wall. But her thoughts were unsettled. She had felt it again, the eyes watching her. Someone had been following her, lurking just beyond the reach of the fading sunlight. She had heard nothing, seen nothing. But she knew. She was not alone. Abini reached for the small knife tucked at her waist. She ran her fingers along its handle, feeling the weight of it. It was not the first time she had been watched, but this time something was different. This time she felt danger. Outside, the night was still. The crickets, the distant hoot of an owl, everything had returned to normal. But then a soft rustle in the bushes behind her house. Abini's grip on the knife tightened. She did not fear the darkness. She had lived in it for too long. Slowly, without making a sound, she moved toward the small wooden window, pressing her back against the wall, silently. Then, another rustle, this time closer. Abini exhaled slowly, her heartbeat steady. If someone was waiting for her to sleep before striking, they would be sorely disappointed. The night stretched on. The sounds faded. Still, Abini did not sleep. She sat in the shadows, her knife resting on her lap, eyes fixed on the door. Whoever was watching her, they would return, and she would be waiting. The night passed in heavy silence. Abini sat awake, her grip on the knife firm but patient. The presence outside never revealed itself again, but she knew it had not disappeared. A watcher does not abandon their prey so easily. As the first light of dawn crept through the cracks in her walls, she finally rose. The world outside was quiet, but the air carried an unsettling stillness. Something had changed. She stepped outside, her bare feet sinking into the soft earth. Then she saw them. Footprints. They trailed along the side of her house, just beneath her window. Deep, deliberate imprints in the soil, that whoever had been watching her had stood there for a long time. Abini crouched, tracing a finger over the marks. They were not the hurried, careless steps of a thief or a drunk. They belonged to someone patient, someone careful. She followed the trail a few steps before it suddenly vanished near the trees. No broken branches, no disturbed grass, as if the watcher had disappeared into thin air. But Abini did not believe in ghosts. She straightened and turned toward the town. There was only one way to find answers: return to the marketplace and watch. As she entered the town, the usual morning bustle had begun. Women arranged their goods in wooden stalls, the scent of fried akara mixing with the crisp morning air. But as she walked through, the whispers followed her. She is cursed. Lada could have died. She should be chased out of Isale Osun. Abini ignored them. She had lived with fear before. It did not shake her. But then, as she reached the center of the market, a voice cut through the murmurs. You are being watched. Abini turned sharply. The speaker was an elderly woman, her back slightly bent with age, her eyes dark but steady. She sat beside a stall of dried herbs, peeling cassava with slow precision. Unlike the others, she did not look away from Abini. Abini stepped closer. Who is watching me? Her voice was quiet but firm. The old woman's knife scraped against the cassava. Scrape. Then she looked up again, her voice barely above a whisper. You will find out soon enough. Abini studied her, waiting for more. But the old woman only gave a small, knowing smile. A smile that unsettled Abini more than the footprints in the dirt. For the first time in a long while, Abini felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, uncertainty. Abini stared at the old woman, her expression unreadable. The market sounds faded into the background as she tried to make sense of the cryptic words. You are being watched. By whom? And why? Before she could ask again, the woman resumed peeling cassava, her hands slow and steady, as if she had already said all she needed to. Abini's fingers twitched at her side. She did not like unanswered questions. She turned and walked away, her mind racing. If someone was watching her, they were patient, careful. But patience had limits. Sooner or later, they would have to make a move. That evening, Abini did something she rarely did. She waited. She did not go straight home. Instead, she lingered at the edge of the town, near an abandoned well where the road split between the village and the forest. There she stood in the shadows, listening. The hunter must also be hunted. The night deepened, and the town grew quiet. The lamps in nearby homes flickered out one by one, and the cool air carried the scent of damp earth. Abini stayed still, hidden beneath a cluster of banana trees. Then, a movement. She saw it. A dark figure slipping through the trees near her house. Slow, careful steps, a shadow among shadows. Abini's grip tightened around the knife hidden in her wrapper. Her heartbeat remained steady. She had spent too many years surviving to panic now. The figure moved closer to her house, stopping just near the window, the same place she had found footprints that morning. Abini exhaled slowly. This was no accident. The watcher had returned. This time, she would find out who they were and why they followed her. Abini watched in silence, her body pressed against the thick trunk of a banana tree. The watcher was patient, but so was she. The figure lingered near her window just as before. In the faint moonlight, Abini could see their silhouette, tall, steady, and deliberate in their movements. They were not afraid of being seen. She tightened her grip on the knife tucked in her wrapper. Whoever they were, they had followed her twice. That was not curiosity. It was a hunt. But who was the hunter? And who was the prey? Abini inhaled, quiet and controlled. This was her moment. She stepped forward, moving like a shadow herself, each footfall carefully placed. The dry leaves beneath her feet did not stir. The figure remained unaware. 3 steps closer. Abini could now hear their breathing, slow and measured. They were waiting for something. 2 steps closer. A sudden gust of wind rustled the trees, sending a whisper through the branches. The figure's head tilted slightly, as if sensing the change in the air. 1 step. Abini struck. With a sharp movement, she lunged, her blade flashing in the moonlight as she aimed for the intruder's arm. But the figure moved. Too fast. A strong hand caught her wrist mid-swing, stopping her blade before it could make contact. The grip was unshaken, powerful. For the first time in a long while, Abini felt something unusual, resistance. She twisted, trying to free herself, but the stranger's hold was firm. This was not an ordinary opponent. Then, a deep voice cut through the night. Calm, steady, unafraid. I was right about you, the man said. Abini's breath was even, her muscles still tense. Who are you? She demanded. The man loosened his grip just slightly, but not enough for her to escape. Someone who needed to see you up close. Abini's eyes narrowed. This was the first time she had met someone who did not fear her. And for the first time in a long time, she was unsure of her next move. Abini's muscles tensed as she stared at the man before her. Even in the dim light, she could see the calm in his eyes. Steady, unwavering, unreadable. Most people trembled in her presence. This man did not. She yanked her wrist, but his grip did not falter. He was strong, controlled, yet not forceful. He was testing her. Who are you? She asked again, her voice was sharp. The man released her wrist slowly, as if measuring her reaction. She did not move. My name is Adigun, he said, his voice deep but calm. I have been watching you. Abini's fingers twitched near the knife at her waist, I noticed. Adigun smirked slightly, just enough for Abini to see. Good, that means you are as sharp as they say. Her eyes narrowed. And what do they say? That you are a woman without a past, he said simply. That you live in the shadows. That you are dangerous. Abini's jaw clenched. She had heard these words before. But why had this man followed her just to repeat them? She studied him. His posture was relaxed but ready. His voice was firm but not threatening. He was different from the men of Isale Osun. He was not afraid of her. And that, more than anything, unsettled her. She took a step back. If you have been watching me, then you should know this. I don't like being followed. Adigun's expression did not change. I do not follow out of curiosity. I follow to understand. Abini's fingers curled slightly. Understand what? Why a woman like you walks alone, Adigun said. Why you are feared. And why, despite the whispers, you have never truly harmed anyone without reason. Abini stiffened. He was studying her not as prey, but as something else. For the first time in a long while, she did not have an immediate answer. The night stretched between them, heavy with silence. Finally, Adigan stepped back, his movements slow and deliberate. "I will not follow you again," he said, "but I will see you again." And with that, he turned and disappeared into the night. Abini stood still, watching his silhouette fade. For years, she had been the one people feared, the one who held power in her silence. But tonight, someone had turned the game on her, and for the first time, she did not know what to expect. Abini did not return home immediately. Instead, she stood beneath the towering trees, her breath steady, her mind racing. Adigun. His name now lingered in her thoughts like an unanswered question. Who was he? What did he truly want? She had met many men, cowards who whispered behind her back, fools who thought they could challenge her, drunks who avoided her gaze. But Adigun was different. He did not fear her. That, more than anything, unsettled her. With a slow exhale, she turned and made her way back home. The sky was darker now, the moon partially hidden behind thick clouds. As she approached her house, she instinctively glanced at the ground. The footprints were still there. A reminder that for days she had been the one watched. But now, she had seen the watcher, and she was no longer the hunted. Sleep did not come easily that night. Abini lay on her mat staring at the wooden beams above her. Her body was tired, but her thoughts were awake. She replayed the encounter in her mind, his grip, his voice, the way he had measured his words. He had been watching her, yet he had not attacked. He had studied her, yet he had not threatened. What kind of man was he? The people of Isaleosun only saw the surface of things. They whispered, they assumed, they feared. But Adigun, he wanted to know more. Abini did not know if that made him a fool or something more dangerous. As dawn approached, she sat up, rubbing a hand over her face. Her decision was clear. If Adigan wanted to understand her, then she would do the same. She would watch him now. And soon enough, she would find out exactly what kind of man he was. The sun rose lazily over Isale Osun, casting golden streaks through the morning mist. The town slowly came alive, market traders setting up their stalls, the scent of akara frying in palm oil, and the distant sound of a blacksmith's hammer striking iron. But Abini had no interest in the town's usual rhythm today. Today, she was the watcher. She sat at the edge of the marketplace, near a stall selling roasted groundnuts, her gaze sharp but casual. She had spent years moving unnoticed, and today would be no different. Then, she saw him. Adigan moved through the market with the ease of a man who belonged. He greeted an elderly woman with a respectful nod. He exchanged words with a yam seller. He paused to watch a group of young boys playing ayo, laughing when one of them won a round. He was ordinary. Too ordinary. Abini frowned slightly. This was not the movement of a man who spent his nights watching others in the dark. He did not carry himself like a hunter, nor like a man with dangerous intentions. But that made him even more dangerous. A man like Bada, the palm wine tapper she had injured, was easy to predict. Loud, foolish, reckless. But men like Adigan, men who watched in silence, they were the ones you truly had to be careful of. Abini adjusted her position, moving behind a fruit shop, careful not to attract attention. She continued to watch him. Then, he stopped. Slowly, Adigan turned his head, and his eyes met hers. Abini's breath remained steady, her expression blank. Had he noticed her? A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips, as if he had expected this. Then, without hesitation, he turned back and continued walking, disappearing into the crowd. Abini exhaled slowly. He knew. She had spent years being the one watched, the one people feared. But today, she had played a different role. And Adigan had caught her in it. For the first time in a long while, Abini did not know what would happen next. Abini lingered in the marketplace long after Adigun disappeared into the crowd. He had seen her. He had known. But instead of confronting her, he only smiled and walked away, as if he had expected her to watch him. That unsettled her more than anything. She was used to men who feared her, men who avoided her, men who whispered her name with caution. But Adigun? Adigun was playing a different game. Abini did not like games she did not control. Slowly, she left the marketplace, moving toward the outskirts of town. The road stretched long and quiet, the trees swaying gently in the midday breeze. Her thoughts churned as she walked, trying to piece together what she knew of him. He had strength. She had felt it in his grip. He had patience. He had watched her for days without making a move. And now, he had awareness. He had caught her watching him. What kind of man was he? The sun had begun its descent by the time she reached her home. As she entered, she bolted the wooden door behind her the same way she always did. But something felt different tonight. It was not fear. It was not unease. It was something she could not name. Abini sat on the floor, her back against the wall, staring at the flickering light of her small oil lamp. She had spent years alone, but now, for the first time, someone was pulling her into something she did not understand. Adigan was not like the others, and that made him the most dangerous of all. The question was, what would she do about it? Abini sat in the dim glow of her oil lamp, staring at the flickering flame. The night outside was quiet, but her mind was restless. Adigan had turned the game on her. She had spent so long being the one people feared, the one who controlled the silence, the one who walked unseen. But now, someone had entered her world, and he was not afraid. What did he want? Abini exhaled slowly. She would not wait for answers. She would find them herself. Her fingers tightened around the small knife at her waist. Tomorrow, she would not just watch Adigan. She would confront him. Morning came with the sound of birds and the distant chatter of the marketplace. Abini stepped out of her house, her feet moving with purpose. But the moment she reached her door, she stopped. Her eyes narrowed as she stared at the ground. A fresh footprint. Someone had been here. Her pulse remained steady, but inside, her mind sharpened. Had it been Adigan? Or was there another who had come too close? Slowly, she stepped forward, scanning her surroundings. The trees stood undisturbed. The wind carried no strange scents, but someone had been here. Abini's fingers hovered near her knife. If they were watching her, if they thought they could move unseen, they were wrong. With a slow breath, she continued her journey to the marketplace. But now, she was not only looking for Adigan. She was looking for the one who had dared to step so close to her door. Abini walked into the heart of Isale Osun, her senses sharp, her mind unsettled. She had come to find Adigan, to confront him, to demand answers. But now, something else gnawed at her thoughts. Who had been at her door? The fresh footprint was not an accident. It was a message. Someone had come close enough to leave a mark, but not close enough to be seen. They wanted her to know. Abini scanned the marketplace, her eyes searching for anything unusual. But all she saw was the town moving in its usual rhythm. Women selling plantains, children running barefoot, men gathered near the blacksmith's shop. Then she saw him. Adigan stood near a stall selling dried fish, casually speaking with the trader. He looked as is always calm, unreadable, and in control. Abini did not hesitate. She stepped forward, moving straight toward him. This time she would not be the one caught off guard. As if sensing her, Adigan turned just as she approached. A slow smile tugged at his lips. "You found me quickly," he said. Abini ignored his words. "You were near my house." Adigan's expression did not change. Was I? She studied his face. He was good at hiding things, but she had spent years reading people, and right now he was not lying. It had not been him. That answer should have given her relief. But instead it made her feel something worse. If not Adigan, then who? Adigan watched her closely. "Something is troubling you." Abini's fingers curled slightly, resisting the urge to show weakness. "I do not like being watched." Adigan tilted his head slightly, considering her words. "Neither do I." For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of unspoken truths between them. Then, Adigan's voice lowered. "Whoever it was, they will return." Abini met his gaze. He was right, and when they did, she would be ready. But the question remained. What did they want? Abini did not reply to Adigan's words, but she held his gaze for a long moment. Whoever had been at her door would return. That much she already knew. Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving Adigan watching her as she disappeared into the crowd. She needed answers. The footprints outside her home had been fresh, but they were not the only sign that something was wrong. She could feel it now. A shift in the air. A presence just beyond sight. Whoever was watching her was careful. More careful than Adigan had been. By the time Abini reached her house, the sun had begun its slow descent. She stood at her doorway, staring at the ground once more. No new footprints, no signs of entry. But she did not relax. Instead, she did something she had not done in a long time. She left her door slightly open. An invitation. A trap. A test. If they thought she was unaware, if they believed she had let her guard down, they would come. And when they did, Abini would be waiting. That night, she did not sleep. She sat in the shadows of her home, her knife resting against her palm, listening to the quiet outside, waiting, watching. Hours passed. Then, a sound, soft and careful, came close to her doorway. Abini's grip tightened. She had spent her life hunting those who wished her harm. Now the hunt had come to her, and she was ready. Abini did not move. She did not even breathe. The footstep had been light, careful, not the clumsy shuffle of a fool. Whoever was outside her door knew how to move unseen, but Abini had lived in silence for years. She knew how to listen. Slowly, she shifted her grip on the knife, her body coiled like a spring. The open door swayed slightly with the night breeze, casting shifting shadows across the floor. Then, another step, closer. Abini's heartbeat remained steady. She was ready. The figure did not enter immediately. Instead, they lingered at the doorway as if testing the space between them. Who were they? What did they want? She could strike now. Catch them before they even realized the trap had been set. But something told her to wait. Let them reveal themselves. Let them make the first mistake. Abini's fingers remained tight around the hilt of her knife as the presence at her door hesitated. Then, they stepped back. The footsteps retreated, fading into the night. Abini remained in place, her mind sharp. Whoever they were, they had changed their mind. Or worse, they had learned something. She exhaled. Slowly, her pulse steady. Tonight had not been the confrontation she expected, but it was a warning. And next time there would be no hesitation. Abini did not sleep. She sat in the darkness of her home long after the footsteps had faded, her knife resting against her thigh. Whoever had come to her door had been careful, deliberately. And that meant something dangerous. They were not afraid. By morning, the town was already alive with chatter, but Abini moved differently through the streets. She did not stop to watch Adigun this time. She did not linger in the market. She had a new task now. She needed to find the one who had come to her. She started where she always did, with the whispers. Abini had learned long ago that a person's mouth often revealed what their hands tried to hide. The women at the palm oil shop, the men at the blacksmith shop, the traders who passed messages without thinking. They all knew things. And today, Abini listened. She heard of stolen goods in the marketplace, of a missing goat near the river, of a stranger who had arrived in Isale Osun a few weeks ago. But no one spoke of footprints in the night. No one mentioned a silent visitor. Whoever it was, they had hidden their presence well. But Abini was patient. She had spent years living in the shadows. Now she was hunting one. And sooner or later, shadows always revealed their shape. Suddenly a voice came from somewhere close. Too close, but Abini did